Welcome back to the Naked Proverbs podcast, where we unclothe the truth about Black love, family, and marriage. My name is Nik Scott, one of your hosts, and I'm here with my husband.
What's going on? It's your boy Rich, and today we are going to tackle the topic of abortion.
Right at the start of every episode, we always remind our listeners that we are not trained, licensed, or professional therapists or counselors. We've been married for a long time, and Naked Proverbs is our platform to share our stories, our experience, our advice, and our opinions. If you haven't already, make sure that you're following the Naked Proverbs on whatever podcasting platform you listen on. And if you like what you hear, stop by iTunes and show us your love and support and give us a 5-star review.
As always, we'd like to take a moment and say thank you to all of our listeners. We truly appreciate you tuning in week after week and spending your day with us. Fall semester's almost over for a lot of schools, colleges, universities. And these kids that believe they're grown are starting to come home. You know, they didn't had a good, 90, 120 days on their own. And ours has returned, disrupting stuff. And I just, I don't even have no advice. I'm looking for some advice. How are y'all handling these grown, not really grown kids coming home trying to be grown?
It's a transition, right? Like, they're transitioning from being a child at home and basically hiding everything that they do from their parents to becoming a young adult who is living on their own in some sense of the word, and then having to come back home and then come back into that, how I never went home, so I don't even really know how that even works.
I dropped out of college the first time and joined the military. So I went from thinking I was grown to, oh shit,
being grown.
This is what grown is. So, it is a very awkward stage and age, I think, because 18, 19, you're really not that grown in the sense of paying your own bills and carrying your own health insurance. But when you're going off to college, you are living what some would consider the life of what being an adult is, right? You have to fend for yourself and take care of yourself and get up and get to class, much like people have to get up and get to work. You have a lot of those same responsibilities. So I think it's a very interesting stage. And I think for me, it's much like when our girls were younger. I always say I didn't want to break their spirit because I believe that they needed to be powerful women, right? And if you break their spirit as young girls, they'll never possibly walk in that greatness. And to me, it's that same thing. Like, now we have this young adult that is trying to figure out where she exists in life. And I don't want to break that, but I'm also like, nigga, you ain't grown.
She's not anywhere near grown, and I don't feel like she acts like she's grown.
She was talking back to me.
Well, she's always talked back, though. This isn't anything
well,
new.
Now you 18 looking grown talking back to me.
Yeah, the difference is you have a whole woman standing here.
Talking back to me, swinging your neck around, looking
talking
crazy.
Back. And I don't know if it's talking back. So I was taking her somewhere this morning, and I asked her, taking her to work, and I said, well, is this the way that you go to work? And she responded, she's like, yeah, but it only takes me, no, she said, what did she say? Oh yeah, but my phone says it only takes 16 minutes or whatever it is that she said. And then when she said it, and it was literally right after I told her that all that extra unnecessary commentary that she was saying she didn't have to say, she proceeds to have another comment with a whole lot of unnecessary commentary.
Put her on the bus.
And I'm like, why does she do that? And I feel like even with the interaction y'all had last night, I was like, I feel like she is defensive. Like anything that we say, she just gets defensive about. And she feels like she has to defend whatever it is. And I don't know what, like you were asking her a very simple question.
She ain't defensive about eating up all my food. She ain't defensive about eating up my leftovers. She ain't defensive about using my electricity. She ain't defensive about using my health insurance. She ain't defensive about using our vehicles. Like, she ain't defensive about when it's something she won't. It's only defensive when we ask a question.
And that's the thing. Like, I don't
Well.
know if she knows how to not be a child around us. I don't know if she
Well.
knows how to be a young adult. Like, in her mind, now that she's home, she's reverted right back to that position, right? Like, I talk about this all the time. Like, she's been gone doing her thing, making her own decisions, doing probably who knows what with who knows who. And now she's home. I can get the conflict a little bit, but I would like to see her come into her own. So I'm like you, like, we don't really have advice because we're working through it now. And I think it's very healthy for us to talk through it, but it would be nice.
I say choke her.
We're not going to choke her.
Put her out. Let her put a tent up in the backyard.
We can put a tent in the backyard.
She get out there cold enough, she'll figure it out.
She'll figure it out.
We've I think taken on some hard topics, some intimidating topics, but this may be one of the hardest, I think, for me, and it's because I really don't have any real world experience with it, but I know that it happens. I know that I have friends that have dealt with it, but today we're going to talk about abortion.
And specifically in the context of marriage.
Yes.
Two married people get pregnant.
Right.
And decide either individually or collectively to terminate the pregnancy.
Yes.
Okay.
Because I feel like, talking about it from a dating standpoint, or
it's different.
It's just very different. And that's not what we are. Mm-mm. Like, our audience is, married couples, or at least that's our target audience.
Right.
Families. So, yeah.
I would like to preface this conversation by saying a lot of what you will hear is opinion. Remember, at the beginning of every episode, we let you know that we're not trained or licensed therapists or counselors, that this is our platform to share a bunch of other things, but one of those things is our opinion. And I feel like it's really hard to have this conversation. I shouldn't say hard. It's difficult to have this conversation without expressing your personal views and your personal opinions about this topic. I would like to believe that the decision to terminate a pregnancy within the context of marriage is one that doesn't happen very often, but I know that that's not necessarily the case.
Well, it actually is the case. You know me, I'm going to find some statistics. I'm going to find some numbers. And statistically speaking, it says 1 in 4 women will have an abortion by the age of 45.
25%.
25%. But if you talk about abortion within marriage, that number goes down drastically. So they actually say that it's less likely in marriage for a woman to choose abortion.
I would wonder what that statistic, like, I would like to dig deeper into that statistic. And I know you love your numbers and you love your statistics, but I also know that statistics can say whatever you want them to say. And when I say dig deeper into that number, I mean, how old are these married couples? Because I would like to believe that the conversation around terminating pregnancy happens more often with an older couple that becomes pregnant and their child has certain is at risk for certain developmental or health issues versus a young healthy couple who is pregnant. And I've also heard that doctors will even bring up the conversation of terminating a pregnancy if blood tests don't come back the way that is preferred.
Right. And I think that that's where it's probably a little different is, now again, we're not talking about in a single or dating aspect, but there are going to be some things that kind of, I think, cross both lines either way. And I would say that in a marriage, if the choice of abortion is chosen, there's more to it than just, we don't want to have a child right now. And I think some of those things, those issues you just brought up, are very realistic. If you already have multiple children and now you're being told you may have a child that's going to have
Down syndrome,
and your career is in a certain place or your marriage is in a certain place, and you're like, that's just a disruption that we can't do. I think that it's, like I said, I think it's a different conversation when you're married, because I would hope that it's a conversation
with both parties.
Right. And I think, I had this conversation recently with a friend, and I was just telling him, unfortunately, the man doesn't get a lot of say in the choice of an abortion or not.
Ever.
And I take issue with that, but that's a whole nother topic. But I would hope that in a marriage, the husband would get to have some type of opinion, that he would get to share his thoughts and his feelings, because to know that your spouse is pregnant, it's a joyful occasion. It's an exciting thing.
It should be.
It should be, right. Mm-hmm. And then to find out that your spouse decided to have an abortion without discussing it with you, or decided to terminate pregnancy and, didn't really tell you, I think that could do some real damage to a marriage.
I think it absolutely can do some damage to a marriage. And I want to just talk a little bit more about what you just said. If you are older, I don't even know what age a high-risk pregnancy is. I know if I got pregnant today, I'd be considered a high-risk pregnancy. Mm-hmm. And if the doctor did my blood work and came back and said, oh, it is 60, 70, 80% chance that this child would be born with some form of autism. Are you saying that because the child would have autism and it would require a certain level of care, a different level of care than our other two children ever have had to have, that would be a justification to terminate the pregnancy? Or how does that play out?
No, and I'm not saying, I think that every married couple is different. Mm-hmm. And, to me, no, I don't personally believe there's very many reasons to ever terminate a pregnancy. Mm-hmm. Now, if the doctor told us, we had to choose, it was going to be you or this unborn child, then I'm probably going to pick you over the unborn child. But if it's something like, hey, this child's going to have some type of, lifelong illness or disability or whatever, then to me, it's like, look, you know what? You take the good with the bad. And this is my child. So love him or her and make the best of it. Like, I personally don't believe in just terminating because it doesn't fit
for
my
convenience.
Life. Right. Exactly. I feel like in my 40s, I'm too old to choose to take a life because it doesn't fit my life, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it makes perfect sense.
I think it's almost like when you're 18, 19 and you find out, oh my God, she's pregnant, or oh my God, I'm pregnant, and a kid, because that's what they are to me, they're children. They'll make a choice like that. That's because they're thinking of it from a convenience standpoint. They're thinking of it from, it's going to impact my life.
Or they're scared.
Right. They're scared. But it's like, come on, you're in your 40s. You knew that if your spouse got pregnant, it would be high risk because, shoot, y'all in your 40s. You ain't 20. You old.
These are some old eggs.
Like, you have to be mature enough. Just like we always think that 18, 19, 20-year-olds are going to be mature. But come on, at some point, you do need to be mature around sex and understand that pregnancy is a part of sex. Unless you have gotten yourself fixed as a man, or whatever happens to women, however they fix you. But at the end of the day, if you are having sex and you're just like, well, I'm on birth control. We know birth control, it states that it's
fails.
not 100%.
Yes.
Right? So there comes a point to me where an abortion shouldn't be about convenience at a certain age, because you should be mature enough to understand the real risk and consequences of your actions and choices.
What I hear you talking about is responsibility and taking responsibility of your choices. As married people, we encourage you on this podcast, especially, to have sex with your spouse a lot. And if you're having sex with your spouse a lot, there is the chance that your spouse could become pregnant. Like, that is a real outcome of having sex. And if your spouse becomes pregnant, your wife becomes pregnant, then you have to make a choice. But to me, it's not really a choice. Like, I'm going to be honest. Like, I don't think it's a choice. I think that if you become pregnant and you're married, regardless of what the circumstances are, you should walk that out. There are so many married couples around this country, around the world, that have tried and tried and tried everything to have a baby. Mm-hmm. And then for a couple, like, we were fertile. Okay.
You were fertile.
I was fertile.
Yeah, I'm pregnant.
Literally. Like, I
sniff you. Oh Lord, I'm pregnant.
Like, seriously. So had we not have been responsible and taken responsibility for our actions, who knows how many kids we would have at this point. So would there have ever been a point that we'd be like, no, we got too many kids, or no, we can't afford it, or no, this is a disruption, or no, that kid is going to, like, I believe that every child is a blessing. Like, you can have sex all day, every day, and not get pregnant. Or you have somebody else who has sex one time and they get pregnant.
They got triplets.
Right. And like, seriously, getting pregnant is a blessing. And I don't think, I'm like you, there are very few circumstances that would warrant, to me, a married couple, collectively or individually, deciding to terminate a pregnancy.
So I read this article from Huffington Post, and this article was all about married people open up about what abortion was like for them. And some of the stories in this article are straight selfish.
It's always selfish.
No.
Okay.
You gotta let me finish.
I know.
There was an example of a man that said, we already had 3 kids, and he didn't want to get fixed in his 20s because he had testicular cancer and beat it, and his wife didn't want to get fixed, so they just relied on birth control. Well, as the years passed, they ended up having a child when they were older, or she became pregnant when they were older, and they both were basically like, this doesn't fit our career, it doesn't fit our life, and they decided to have an abortion. Then there's another example, though, where this man is kind of like I said earlier. The doctor basically told them, you're going to have to choose, because either the baby's going to survive or your spouse is going to die during childbirth, because she had some physical complications, earlier in life that basically prevented her from, being able to take a child all the way to term and have the child. So to me, I just feel like, are there times that it may make sense? Yes. But I think in marriage, it's a little different than 2 single people that, oops, we had a baby. Because you shouldn't, in a marriage, ever be like, oops. Because,
we know how to get pregnant and we know how to prevent pregnancy.
Yes.
Let's be clear. Even if you're young, you know how to prevent pregnancy. And I don't think it's a oops. I think that this one is hard for me to really articulate and unpack without sounding like I am pro-life, because I'm not pro-life per se.
There's even an example of a woman that's like, we decided to have an abortion because we had 3 kids and a 4th child just didn't fit. And I guess I go back to, where's the responsibility? You know what sex was created for. It feels great. It's fun. It's all these things. But at the end of the day, sex is about reproduction. So if you know that you don't want a child, you don't want to bring a child to term and give it up for adoption, then you should probably be looking at other options when it comes to birth control, or, you know, I mean, because you can't just say, well, don't have sex in marriage.
No, we're not.
Like that's not realistic. But I think that there are so many different procedures that a man or a woman can have that will prevent pregnancy, that if that's, you know, if you just want sex to be something that's fun and there's no risk involved of having a child because you're not ready for children, or you don't want children.
I don't want any more kids.
You don't want any more children. I think that you have to be responsible and in the choices that you make leading up to, and not be reactionary to you not being responsible.
How does that happen though? Married people are going to have sex. People get pregnant all the time, whether they're young or old. And I guess the context of this conversation for me is really around, is it okay? Like, should a married couple even engage in the conversation of whether or not they should terminate a pregnancy?
Well, and I think that that's the key is really, you have to communicate, right? So, and this conversation should probably be before you find out you're having a baby, because if you find out early on during the conversation, after, let's say you've had a couple kids, you've had 2 kids, and you're like, you know, do we want more children?
We do not want any more kids.
No, we're good, right? So I was fixed. I mean, I've been fixed since I was in my 20s.
Yes, but however, that's not even 100%, they say.
Well, it's not. But,
so what if I became pregnant?
And I think that that's still a conversation though, right? And I think that the fact that we love to have sex and you end up being pregnant at some point, then, well, that's kind of the reality of when you have sex. You could become pregnant.
But what would we do?
We'd have a baby. Shoot. I mean, it ain't we'd be sad. We'd be blue.
Oh, I would be so sad and blue.
But I mean, I think I'd hire me a nanny, and he or she would take care of the baby really well.
Come on, Maria.
I mean, no, but I mean, I think, you know, that is also a reality, that there are people that have done the right things, or, you know, quote unquote, the right things, and then find out, oh my God, you're pregnant. Well, I didn't think you could get pregnant. Or because, I mean, you hear stories like that all the time of women that have not been able to get pregnant for 30 years of trying.
Right.
So they're under the impression, you know, their doctors have told them pretty much they can't get pregnant. And then at 45, they're like, oh my God, I'm pregnant. Mm-hmm. And now they've created a whole lifestyle that is one of someone that can't have children. So now they find out they're having a baby, and it's like, well, now what?
You never know who you're giving birth to. You never know who, like, you think of all the great people in this, in the world, in history, right? Malcolm X, that was somebody's son. Martin Luther King Jr., that was somebody's son. Oprah Winfrey, that's somebody. Like, you never know who you're giving birth to.
Joe Biden, somebody's son.
That's somebody's son. Like, you never know who you're giving
Kamala.
Birth. That's somebody's daughter. And that's my point. Like, we don't get to play creator, right? Mm-hmm. Like, we play a role in creation, but we are not the creator. We are not the people who determine when a life is created and when a life isn't. Like I said, we could have sex. We've been having sex forever, and we've been pregnant twice. Right. And if we got pregnant now, it would not be a very happy occasion. And I'm just going to be clear and honest about that.
I mean, it'd be a disruption, but I think also I would look at it like, you know what?
I would be pissed.
This isn't our plan. You know, we're on the verge of being empty nesters. This isn't what we expected.
I'd be mad as hell.
But I would also look at it like, well, it was meant to be though, right? Because we've had all these years of sex and no children have come from it except for the first 2. So now if 17 years later from the last time we had a child, a child comes from it.
I don't think you understand how I'd be mad.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not
You're
saying
talking
you
so
be mad.
calm about it.
Because at the end of the
I'm
day,
not even going to lie. The thought of terminating that pregnancy would cross my mind.
And I think that is something that I would hope that we would discuss, right? Because like I said earlier, it would be devastating to know that you found out you were pregnant and went and had it terminated and never said anything to me. Like, I would be devastated.
I don't believe that I would carry out those thoughts. But if I am completely honest, right, because it's easy for me to say, like I said 10 minutes ago, there are very few, and it shouldn't be a selfish decision and all of that. And I still believe that. But when it's actually you and sitting here just thinking about it, right, like I can feel the feelings that I would have just thinking about it, that I would have if I peed on a stick and the stick said you were pregnant.
You got two little lines.
Let me tell you, I would weep. I would ugly cry. I would cry so hard. Like it wouldn't even, because at this stage and age in my life, a pregnancy would be, yes, a disruption, but it is completely unwanted right now.
I mean, we'd be dang near 60 by the time that child left the house.
And even just thinking about my quality of life as an elderly person is...
We go from changing their diapers to them changing ours.
They wouldn't be changing them. It'd be them older two. That'd be, well, not the oldest, maybe the middle child at that point.
I guess I just, I look at it like, look, can't do nothing about it. And if you have that type of attitude, instead of just being like, well, I do have an option, I'm going to terminate this child because it doesn't fit what I planned in my life at 40 plus.
And that's where you have to be real with yourself, though. Right. Like you have to, that's that self accountability. Like I just said, I know the thought of terminating the pregnancy would cross my mind.
Well, not mine.
I know it would, and I know it wouldn't. So, but then I would have to step out of that.
Your feelings.
And your being selfish. Exactly. Like that is where the adult has to step up and not that fearful
18-year-old
little kid.
Right.
Exactly. And I guess that's my point in saying, like, it really shouldn't be a conversation. I feel like if you're married, you should go ahead and move forward with the pregnancy. That's not to say that somebody like me isn't going to have those feelings. And maybe it's not the wife, maybe it's the husband who has those feelings. Right. But I think that that's when you would be like, girl, you being selfish. And I would have to get over myself at some point and be like, okay.
I mean, then I think also you have to think about the long-term effects of that, right? Yep. Because it's not just you and I that would be impacted by us choosing to terminate a child. It's our daughters would be impacted because now they're like sitting back, well, have they terminated other children? Like, is this how, like, are we the lucky ones?
Are we the golden kids?
Like, dang, they just was like, nah, we good. Because I think a lot of times parents don't even think about the impact of their choices when it comes to their children. They just look like, well, their kids, it don't matter. This ain't their life. But on the flip side of that, what does it look like to have a child with a disability?
Right.
And how is that going to impact your family and the siblings that already exist? I think it's not something that's cut and dry or just easily, relegated to, oh, you should or you shouldn't. I think there's a lot of conversation that has to happen around it. And it can't be from a selfish point of view, though. And I think that's more of, even kind of what you're saying now is like, look, I know I'm selfish or, I know that this wouldn't fit my life right now for these reasons. But when you are a married couple and a child is given to you, you have to step out of the selfishness that we can all have and really evaluate why you don't want to have the child. And if it's all comes down to just selfish reasons, then you probably need to just get over yourself and have the child you've been blessed with.
Well, the Christian folk would say God won't put more on you than you can bear.
It's not even in the Bible, though.
But that's what the Christian folk would say.
But I'm just saying that's nowhere in the Bible.
I know that.
It's like what did my baby say that time when she was with her auntie? She said, "Show me in the Bible."
Oh yeah, she sure did. Show me. Well, you won't find that in the Bible, but that's what they say. There's a whole beautiful song about it.
Yeah, but it ain't in the Bible. What was your point? I'm sorry. I was just so adamant to make sure everybody know that ain't in the Bible.
It's not in the word, y'all.
Ain't nothing in the Bible say he won't put more on you than you can bear.
That is not biblical.
That's just
There's a whole lot of things that aren't biblical.
That's true.
That people say. And Okay, that's a whole
Yeah.
different conversation.
We spoke talking about emotions.
Well, the point is yes, I feel like, and that's why I brought it to me personally, because it's easy to sit here behind the microphone on Naked Proverbs and tell other people what they should and shouldn't do and give them my opinions about what they should and shouldn't do.
Had a baby.
But when I brought it to me and I could literally feel the hairs on my arms standing
excited.
up. And you got excited.
I was like, ooh, I'm going to get to go sledding again, and the kid's going to be nice again, and then they're going to be a butthead again.
Please, no.
Then we finally get rid of them, and then they're going to come home, and I'm going to be asking y'all, what do I do with this college kid?
I have yet to figure out and see the return on my investment with the first two, so I'm very reluctant to have another.
The love that they give when they give love.
When?
They do sometimes. It's rewarding.
Okay. What is the return on investment of having children? Y'all let me know that one.
I don't know.
Thanks so much for tuning in to this week's episode of the Naked Proverbs podcast. We truly want you to have a happy marriage. We want you to thrive in your marriages and indulge in your spouses on a regular basis. Don't forget to follow the Naked Proverbs on whatever podcasting platform you listen on. And we will talk to y'all in the next one.
Peace.